Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Science of Reading program webinar series, Reading Comprehension in Action. My name is Trisha, and I'm on the literacy team here at Amplify. We're so excited that you're joining us today for an educator panel to learn more about Amplify Core Knowledge Language Arts, our unique and proven core literacy curriculum for grades K through 5. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording link via email later this week, and you'll also receive a certificate of attendance for joining us. If you'd like to access closed captioning, please click on the CC button in the bottom tray and then show captions. Before I go over some housekeeping items, I'd love for everyone to let us know in the chat where they're joining us from. For those just tuning in, I see the numbers going up right now. Just please let us know in the chat who you are and where you're joining us from. I'm joining from a very cold but sadly not snowy New York, but I'm holding out hope for that to change in the next week or so. St. Louis, Missouri, welcome. Kansas. Awesome. I'm just going to wait a couple more seconds before I get going since I see people still trickling in. But again, for those just coming in, let us know where you're from in the chat. We have people from all over, which is really exciting. Thank you for joining. Okay, feel free to keep popping your answers in the chat as I go over some housekeeping items. I did want to flag that we have 2 remaining webinars in this series, an educator panel for mClassDibbles 8th edition and a panel for Amplify ELA, our middle school literacy program. You can register at amplify.com/fall2025-SOR-demos. Even if you can't make all of them, we still encourage you to register so you can get the recording sent over, and we'll have the registration link dropped into the chat momentarily. We also have all these other webinars listed here available as recordings already, and they're ready for you to watch at your own convenience. So again, please go ahead to that link being added to the chat to access all these webinars on demand. With that, I'll hand it over to the moderators of this panel, Tricia Metzel and Erin Brennan, both former classroom teachers and school leaders who now help support Amplify as literacy product specialists. If you have any questions for the moderators or the panelists at any point during this panel webinar, feel free to leave them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll take a look at the end, time depending. Questions can sometimes be lost in the chat, so again, use that Q&A box. It's the best spot for them. And that's all for me. Erin and Tricia, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Trisha. It's really great to be here. Erin and I are so excited to be here with some remarkable and impressive educators from all over the country. So Heather, we're actually going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with CKLA.
Hi, my name is Heather Wade, and I teach 3rd grade in Virginia. We are departmentalized here, so I teach 2 blocks of reading, so I actually get to teach it twice every day, so that's pretty awesome. I love that. This is our 2nd year, so we implemented it last year, and we're doing it this year, and it's amazing. I've just seen so much engagement in my kids using this program.
Awesome. Thank you. Katie, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Aanenson. I am the district literacy lead in Big Lake, Minnesota. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in my career, and then switched over to intervention. And for the past, this is year 5 of being a literacy specialist. And our experience with CKLA has been so great. But my role basically is teacher support and implementation. And so I have the opportunity to go and see people implementing the curriculum in their classrooms. And also I've taught CKLA lessons in every grade K-5. So that's my experience.
Awesome. Great perspective. And Kerri, how about you?
Hi, I'm Kerri Lintl. I teach 3rd grade in a small rural town in Wisconsin. And I think it's year 5. I was actually really excited because I had been the one to introduce CKLA to the district during the pilot program. So we picked them as one of our pilot, and luckily I got to do one of them. That was the best part. And from there, I was sold after we started. Now, not in the first 4 months. It's really hard in the beginning. But once I saw my students' growth, you couldn't peel it out of my hands. I told them, if you don't pick this one, I'm still picking it myself. But luckily our district picked it. So now we're on year 5, and you can see we actually got a 5-star school, I think it's called, year. So the top achievement happened in our school. It's just really cool to see all the growth of the students, for sure.
That's awesome. And I remember when we were talking to you earlier, the quote that you had was, "We can do hard things," right?
Yes. And that was the big thing I just kept on telling myself. And, my kids always looked at me like, why does she keep saying this? But I'm like, don't worry, guys, we got this. We can do hard things. And I finally asked them, I'm like, I gave them a survey. I'm like, what do you guys think? Because I felt like I was talking all the time at the beginning. And they're like, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, okay, so it is just me. Got it. Thank you.
Love it.
I'm doing hard things. You guys got it.
That's awesome. Well, we've got some great questions for you guys today. Cannot wait to hear what you have to say. But before we dive in, I really want to give those that aren't familiar with Amplify CKLA kind of a quick overview of the program design. So the bedrock of CKLA is really the reading rope. It's a model from Dr. Hollis Scarborough that shows us many different skills work together to create that skilled reader. So CKLA brings this to life with those 2 main strands. So we've got the skill strand, which builds word recognition, and then we have the knowledge strand, which grows students' language comprehension. And then as students get more automatic with word reading and more strategic with understanding the language, those strands start to weave together, just like CKLA's integrated strand in grades 3 through 5. So throughout, CKLA really grows comprehension through that rich interactive work with text, where strategies like inferencing and finding the main idea are woven naturally into what students do before, during, and after reading. And then we have the CKLA skills strand. Sorry about that. Got a little frog in my throat there. And this is where teachers introduce each new skill through phonemic awareness, and then they work to map those sounds to letters through explicit phonics instruction. Students engage in handwriting activities. They apply their sound spelling concepts with daily practice and reinforcement. And then they apply those sounds in connected text, and they respond to those text-dependent questions. And then at the core of CKLA, it's really that knowledge building curriculum. We know that students have to have that powerful knowledge sequence. Students engage with a wide range of people, perspectives, and high quality texts in really exciting units. They dive into science, they dive into social studies and literature and the arts, and those different types of topics to really build a robust knowledge base that strengthens reading comprehension and writing composition. And they grow from week to week and year to year, both within and across those grade levels. And this is intentional to build students' background knowledge and their vocabulary. Knowledge really functions like what Marilyn Adams describes as that mental Velcro. The more students already know, the more easily they can attain and retain new information. So when we strengthen that Velcro, we really help students make that cross-curricular connection, really deepen their understanding and bring those rich ideas into their writing. This isn't just about learning isolated facts, but it's about creating a network of knowledge that fuels stronger comprehension and, of course, more confident, coherent writing. And then we have the K2 knowledge strand. And this follows a consistent routine, really introducing that read aloud, listening and discussing, writing to extend, and reviewing and assessing. And this is a predictable sequence that really helps students build that deep background knowledge and vocabulary. It really strengthens that comprehension, and then it brings those rich ideas into their writing. And then within the integrated strand, students in grades 3 through 5 are really expanding on their knowledge through that rich, high quality text that really sparks their curiosity and that meaningful discussion. Now, each lesson really invites them to read, to write, think deeply about the text, while vocabulary, grammar, morphology are all naturally woven in to strengthen their skills within the context of what they're learning. So before we begin our first question, we really want to ground this conversation with a quote from Dr. Hugh Katz. Reading comprehension is not a skill that you can transfer from one passage to another. There are skill components, but it's relying on the knowledge you have to begin with and the effort you put into what you're reading. So while our students are continuing to develop those essential reading and writing skills, they're doing it with meaningful content. That's important because we know comprehension isn't just a set of skills you can apply anywhere. It really depends on the knowledge that students bring to the text and the effort that they put into understanding it. So with this first question, Was starting CKLA a big shift for you as a teacher? How did it change the way that you think about reading instruction and comprehension? And, feel free to whoever would like to start the conversation.
I will. When we started, I come from a county that is very based on small groups. They think that's the only way you can teach. They still believe that. So once I started teaching this, it's amazing when my students are not rotting in centers for an hour and a half, with a 10-minute mini lesson, and then they're sitting there pretending to do independent work. I am explicitly teaching for 2 hours. It's amazing how much kids can learn when you are explicitly teaching for 2 hours. So I feel like it has increased their knowledge and their skill. Everything has increased because of that shift from small groups to the whole group teaching.
And definitely see some good results with that. Go ahead, Kerri.
Well, I've got to piggyback off of that because I love what Heather was saying. It's so true. I also came from a district. Balanced literacy was everybody did it. It was expected. And I always wondered, because I've taught kindergarten and first grade too, and I always sat and wondered, what are those guys really doing over there? Because they're in this little group. I never had an aide to help or anything, so they were on their own. And the biggest shift was actually though in me, because I had to realize that it's okay that I'm explicitly teaching. I'm the teacher and I'm up in front of the class I'm leading. I mean, they lead too, but it's okay to be that leader and explicitly teaching. And I feel like I had to understand that for myself and really digest that first before I could become great at it. And I think now in year 5, I see my students just excited for this block. They can't wait to see what we're going to learn today. They can't wait to show me what they've got, and they love doing the hard stuff. It's been a really good experience for me as well, especially for my low level readers. Some of the readers who come in who aren't there yet, I think they're the ones who appreciate it the most.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Kerri. I think just like Kerri was saying, and just like Heather was saying, that for our teachers in our district, it was a really big shift because we did come from a balanced literacy model. And our state government passed the READ Act too. And so we can't do any more of the three queuing, things like that. But I think something that was really interesting for us that was a bigger shift than I was anticipating was in the beginning, the teachers, especially when we got CKLA. So this is year 3 for us, and we're doing the 3rd edition right now. We did CKLA 2nd edition the last 2 years. So this year we are on 3E. But they would look at their knowledge topics and they're like, this is way too hard for my kids. There's no way that they can do this. Or this is so over their heads. And what I think is really cool, and I think this is really where the shift happened, I never hear that anymore. Our teachers know that our kids are completely capable of those complex things, and that complex learning of those difficult topics. Difficult is the wrong word. I'm going to say worldly topics, because that's really what we're doing. We're giving our kids the world. I'm just so proud of the way our teachers have taken on the challenge of that comprehensive, coherent, knowledge building curriculum. And they've really become experts in the knowledge domains in their grade level. It's really cool to see. I also think that when we're thinking specifically about comprehension, is that teachers are seeing really clearly how knowledge building supports comprehension across topics and disciplines. So because their students have more things to stick to, you mentioned Velcro, Trisha. I've been reading a lot by Zaretta Hammond, and she talks about those synapses and the myelination or whatever of the brain, and how we take things from a dirt road to a paved road, and it helps kids complete those circuits and pull things faster out of their brain. So I don't think that we as a system even realized how much the knowledge building curriculum would impact the other disciplines.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing, everyone. And Katie, I'm really excited to hear you talk about knowledge building, because that kind of leads us to our next question. And When we think about a true science of reading program, CKLA really intentionally builds that knowledge. And we recognize that it's really important for students to know a little bit about a lot of things. And kind of what you were just saying, Katie, I love that Dr. Daniel Willingham says every reading test is really a knowledge test in disguise. So within CKLA, we're ensuring that students engage with our rich knowledge building sequence and in really fun ways. So we keep them engaged throughout the school year. And if you peek on social media, you'll see all the ways in which educators make CKLA really fun and engaging and help students deepen their understanding of a variety of topics. So the quote for that kind of guides this next question for you as panelists is that when students build strong knowledge, they build strong comprehension. So our question for you would be, how do you see both knowledge building and engagement working together to support comprehension in your classrooms? Anyone can answer that too.
I feel like it gives them a purpose for reading. So, they're not just reading a thing about spring and then a thing about bugs and then a thing about trains. You know what I mean? It gives them a purpose. They are trying to get knowledge and information. And I love that. I think that makes them so much more engaged in the reading part, the teaching reading. It's just very engaging for them. I love it. That
Heather, I want to come teach with you. I think we would have a blast.
I wish you would. Come on. I would love it.
So it's the biggest thing that whenever I read this sentence and I think, it's more than this. It's the confidence. I understand that we're building knowledge and engagement and all that, but my students are gaining so much confidence. They truly understand what they're reading. There's no doubt in their mind that they don't understand the Roman Republic. I would tell you today, they tried to argue a couple of facts and they almost got through to me today. But I mean, they're debating with me on the floor here because Julius Caesar is a big topic, and it's pretty hot and heavy in here when we talk about Julius Caesar. There's a lot of people that feel very strongly one way or another. But I love that. I mean, their confidence. My students I have a student that would be, I would say, at a kindergarten level coming from a different school. And the engagement she has, she can read the hard words, even though she doesn't have all the pieces yet because she knows that academic language. So she feels confident in what she's providing the team when she shares out her comprehension, because as I tell them on a daily basis, we read to learn. Let everything else go. I mean, we're still teaching everything else. If you're, the kids that have any holes in their foundation will fix that. But we read to learn now in third grade. And I think that builds their confidence in a way that I had never seen before. And then with that confidence, they will take a chance on things that they've never took a chance on before. I actually very seldom, it's usually if somebody's feeling a little ill, nobody ever passes in my room. So we'll give way, everybody's like, no, I got this. And they don't pass. Even if it's a hard question, they'll go back and find the text evidence and they'll go back and search it. And very, very rarely will I have somebody go, ooh, can I phone a friend? Because they take a lot of pride in being able to do these skills.
To back up what Kerri just said, the confidence in SPED students and L students, where with balanced literacy, we've had them sitting reading passages that say the bug is in the grass, and there's no discussion with that. There's nothing that they can talk about. And just because they can't always decode right away, they have thoughts, they have ideas. And my SPED kids are so much more confident than they have ever been, because they know we're all reading the same thing. We're all discussing the same thing. I love that about it. It's so amazing. It puts everybody on the same playing field. And you are so right. The confidence, I feel like, that is so huge.
Absolutely. I agree with you ladies too. You're so amazing. But one thing that I think is so cool is our kids love their knowledge topics. Because I'm not in the classroom, I go into all classrooms, but when I walk down the halls or whatever, I'll say to the kids, "What are you learning about right now?" And they're like, "We're learning about the Middle Ages." And I thought, It's so funny that you wouldn't think a fourth grader would be that stoked about the Middle Ages, but they really are. We actually, our teachers do a medieval market. So they tie in what they do with the Middle Ages, and then they tie it with social studies. So they do like supply and demand and all those things. And they actually, the kids make stuff and they bring it and they sell it. They have fake money. But anyway, just the engagement is so amazing to see, and just supporting that comprehension. One thing that I don't think we're prepared for as a system was that, and I think it's an unexpected benefit. Parents will say to us, "Oh my gosh, my kid comes home from school," and I ask them, "What did you learn at school today?" And they have so much to say. And I was thinking about my own kids who are older now, but when I would ask them that question, my older two, who are men of few words, would say nothing. And I was like, well, I know you learned something, but they would read a story. And I did this in my classroom. I would read a story, I would talk about it, we would identify the main idea, or we'd find the theme, or we'd look at the character setting and plot and things like that. But it wasn't ever tied to anything except for those strategies. And I think that is really the thing. Like, we're all grounded in that same knowledge. It's a community of learners. And I think that's what makes part of the engagement so powerful. And also, CKLA has lots of academic conversation protocols built in, but one of the buildings that I work in is a STEM school, and we have STEM strategies that we've identified. And our teachers use those, they weave those STEM strategies in, and it works so beautifully with our the prompts and the questions in CKLA. I mean, it just is a way that every kid gets the opportunity to answer. And if you again think about like retrieval practice, everybody has the opportunity to think about it and talk about it before we actually engage in a bigger conversation together. So it's just really fun to see all of those things happening.
That is amazing. It's really exciting to hear you talk about the engagement element, like students being excited about it, but then also knowing that you're seeing real results from your instruction as well. Heather, I wonder if you want to share the what you've noticed with your students and the growth that they've made.
Sure. Last year was the first year that we implemented it, and I felt so good about it. And our SOLs, because I'm in Virginia, and that's like our standardized test. Third grade, the whole third grade was 82% pass rate. And that is the highest we've ever had here. And I was like, you see, it's not about small groups, it's about explicit teaching, like, and it's just, that's been amazing. And then this year, this is our second year, we just took our MAP test yesterday, and I got the results today, and I saw more growth in my kids than I have ever seen in my kids, and it's only December. Like, it made me so excited, but it's crazy. It builds their stamina for those kinds of tests because they are reading so much every single day. I love that. So that it just builds their stamina, and they're able to take those tests and just do well. It's amazing. It was so good. I was so excited today when I woke up and got those results.
Thank you for sharing that. We need to highlight and celebrate because that's such an exciting moment for you, and congratulations for all of that hard work. So let's transition a little bit into include writing. And when we think about the science of writing, we know that it functions similarly to the science of reading. And we know that students really need both composition skills and transcription skills to become skilled writers. And we know that this is a reciprocal relationship to reading. So writing instruction might look different for those of you who are new to CKLA. I'm sure these ladies here could talk a little bit about that experience. And we have some examples where we can see kind of the breadth of writing that students can accomplish within CKLA. So utilizing that rich background knowledge alongside those skills that they have been developing, both transcription and composition skills, they're able to develop a variety of writing projects. And so we can kind of use writing as an opportunity to sort of measure this as well. But thinking about how reading and writing are reciprocal processes, this quote from our own Dr. Susan Lambert comes to mind. The science of reading encapsulates decades of research about both reading and writing, because if writing was never invented, we would not have to teach kids explicitly how to read. So thinking about this in the kind of context of how we've been discussing comprehension, how does writing help your students make sense of what they're learning, and how does it improve their comprehension? Any thoughts?
Well, I think it helps them ground everything that they're doing and unify it in a sense. I So when with writing, we start off really small, just making really good sentences, and then we build upon that. And I feel like that piece, as they're building, I'm watching them, their wheels turn. Okay, I need a topic sentence, right? And I'm like, yep. And then like they'll go through each piece that they need. But what that does is it tells me they really understood what they read because they can write about it and they can find reasons for it and they can find the text evidence. And because of those pieces, they're able to produce really good writing. They don't have to just write to write. And I think for some people, that's the hardest thing about writing is, well, I don't have any ideas. Don't worry, I got your ideas all for you. Know what I mean? I got your topic all for you ready. All you got to do is answer this question. And I think that's enough of a jump start for them to be like, oh, I can totally do this. I know what my words are that I need to use. Oh, yeah, I know. So I think what it does is it just makes everything concrete and it blends it all together and gives them a really strong foundation to show you what they have learned because they are reading to learn.
And to back up what Kerri said, also back to like the SPED population and the L's, it's hard. They have a hard time writing but not with this program because they have the knowledge. You know what I mean? They have all the information they need to write. They've learned and they're able to put it to paper so easily. And that has been a huge jump from what we have been doing before. It was like pulling teeth. And now the kids are excited to write about it because they know about it. They're just excited that they know all of this stuff. And so it's really cool that they can put it on paper and put it all together. I just think that is such a cool thing.
I agree. One of the things that's really cool that we've seen with writing with CKLA is that our students in K2, they use the skills component and the knowledge component. And in their skills component, they read their decodable readers and they write about what happens in their decodable readers. So they get that practice that's very much focused on those early word recognition skills, but not just decoding, but also encoding, which is awesome. And then as they get older, also, one of the hallmarks of the CKLA curriculum is that we have kids answer in complete sentences. And so that's another thing that really benefits our students because they're doing that oral rehearsal. They're practicing answering in complete sentences. And so as they get to be more proficient with their reading and writing, they're able to answer in those complete sentences as well. I think that's just a huge benefit to doing it that way. So they do that in their skills, then they do it in knowledge. So in knowledge, the teacher reads the story in K2, and then the students have the application component of the lesson where they're applying what they learned. They're writing things, they're creating graphs, they're doing graphic organizers, all kinds of interesting things that are all different ways that we're supporting kids understand what they're learning about. Because we know like just the act of writing, so putting your pencil to the paper helps students learn more deeply. There's a wide body of research about that actually. And then also response writing and low stakes writing, like kids knowing that I am writing to learn and not just reading to learn, but writing to learn. Those are all really important things that really improve our kids' comprehension on the different things that they're learning about. I know the other thing I was thinking about with this was so I don't know if Kerri and Heather, if you have 3E yet, or if you have the second edition, they're both amazing. But in 3E, okay, there's a heavy emphasis on sentence expansion and other writing strategies. And so, for example, our third graders have been doing a lot of because, but, so. So identifying those conjunctions, what do they mean? How do they act in a sentence? If I say that this happened because of this, or if I say this happened But that means something different. And so it's really interesting too, because just like in the K2, in 3-5, they start with those things in their oral activities. So they answer the because but so maybe with a group or with a partner, but then as the year progresses, then they start writing those things out in complete sentences. And it's just another way to expand their sentences and just keep making sure that that comprehension is always at the forefront.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And it's making me think about how this shift to writing, the way that we do it in CKLA might be different for some people. And I'm curious, I have kind of a follow-up question to this that's related to writing comprehension, but maybe you could speak a little generally as well. Like this shift to this type of instruction within CKLA, what kind of maybe what would you share with someone who is new to a program like this, whether you're speaking about writing or just in general? What might you say to them if they're just getting started with a program like CKLA?
I would say be patient and, just keep going because it's amazing. Like at the beginning, it seems hard just because it's so different, but with everything woven together the way it is, it makes it, I mean, it is just phenomenal because of that, because your grammar is based on what they're reading. Everything they do, their spelling is based on what they're reading. Everything they do is based on that reading. And I mean, it's incredible.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that or? Okay. So we've been able to discuss a lot of topics and move through these really quickly. So we're kind of reaching our point where you could share any sort of final thoughts that you might have about using CKLA in your program, and then we can maybe discuss some of the questions that people have.
I think the biggest final thought I have is just, and I read a lot on Facebook and other things. I try to keep up with social media, and I see a lot of people posting how stressed they are. And kind of what Heather said, it's really hard at the beginning because anytime you're trying a new program, it's hard. Like that part's a given. But even if you get through, so I always give people this progression for me because I'm year 5. In year 1, I got through 4 units. And I decided that I was going to give myself grace and that was okay. My students still jumped multi-percent. I mean, I didn't have anybody. This is the first year that I've had anybody in reading intervention. And they're, for reasons beyond me since starting CKLA. So I usually am able to get them out of any type of intervention by the time we're done. And that's something to really celebrate. But you have to be able to feel that and you have to believe it. So I really wholeheartedly when I teach, everything comes out. I'm pretty enthusiastic. I wear some costumes, I might do a little bit of play acting, but it's to get my kids in it to win it. And I need them to believe that they can do all the hard things. Like I need them to full-fledged believe that they've got this. And I think that has to do with my enthusiasm that I give. But also I give myself grace. Next year I got through 7 units. Yay for me. Next year I got through, 10 units. Last year they looked at me, they're like, the last year's group really, really had a great time. And they're like, we still get the last book, right? And I'm like, yes, you'll get unit 11. They're like, but we can just do it over the summer. Like, even though you told us we're not going to get to it, I go, yes, because like we take a lot of field trips. We're a very project-based school. So we literally don't have enough days to make it to unit 11, but they all get the book. And so that is like gold to them, which I think is amazing that they all want to take it home for the summer and then read. It's very fun. So give yourself grace. You got this. And anything that you get through, like, don't feel like you have to rush the first couple of years. Do it to the best of your ability.
I think one thing that I would tell people, just trust the resource and trust the process. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Learning Pit. I can't remember who it's by, James Nottingham, but teachers have it too. So you're going along and you think everything's great, and then you get a new resource and it's hard. And and you have to put forth a lot of effort, and it's cognitively demanding on top of all the other demands of being a teacher. But it's a short-lived pit. You come out on the other side and you're so much stronger and so much better for having done that. And then the other thing that I would say is that your number one reason why you're there, why we're all here, is for kids. And so what can we do to make sure that we build literate people? Because it's not just about now, it's about the future. And so I think that systems perspective is really important too.
And she was also talking about, it takes time, but it also saves time because you have the workbooks. We don't have to constantly make copies. I don't have to do that. I love that, being able to be like, just open your workbook and turn to this page and not have to have all the copies. It's amazing. So it has actually saved me time by using this curriculum. And Kerri was talking about the readers. The students think those readers are the most fabulous things. I mean, they're chapter books, so to them, some of those kids have never read a chapter book. And every time we finish one, they get so excited. So I love that. I love the readers. They are really a cool addition to the curriculum.
Our second graders love Sir Gus. He is so funny. Sir Gus, the utterly fearless. He's hilarious, and they just can't wait to read about Sir Gus every day.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, we have been able to kind of rush through our questions. I wonder if we want to take some questions from the participants.
Yes, we actually had two, I think, really interesting questions pop into the Q&A, and I think uh, they would love to know what the panelists think. First one is from Caitlin. We are struggling to balance student voice and autonomy with the emphasis on a necessity of whole class teacher-led read-alouds. At what point in the implementation does the shift occur when students start doing the hard things? I think that was a direct Kerri quote, instead of the teacher shouldering that.
Are you in, does it say what year she's in? Is it their first year?
It does not say.
Okay. If it's your first year, you got to give them grace because this is really new to them too. Like I said, I would say by year 3 with the students, they always did their own. And so the read aloud part is always me because that is harder text and that helps them prepare for the listen and reading or reading and listening component in 3rd grade because ours are all interwoven together. And I think if you just give that part time, you'll feel it. I've also noticed by about unit 4-ish, they're almost ready to work in more partners too. Alone, like you're almost your 100%, where you might still have to pull a small group to work with one group to make sure they're getting what you need. But I would say by unit 4 or 5, they're really become independent on many of the skills.
Yeah, and I think it depends on what grade you're into because, with the K2, the teacher reads aloud the knowledge part, and the kids read the decodables. But I think Kerri was right when she said about year 3 because we're on year 3 this year, and we've seen just a big change in how teachers are addressing things and how students are addressing things. Also, they're just because they're used to the program and they kind of know how to operate. So it's much smoother this year than it has been.
I would also mention thinking about how we view what whole class looks like and how engaging that can be for students through like turn and talk and think pair shares and those interactive read aloud portions in the K2 knowledge strand while the teacher is reading and the students are looking at the text because we're avoiding that cognitive overload for our students. There's so much opportunity for discussion, like many of you have mentioned here today, that your students, some of those who might not normally be invited to the discussion because they'd be reading very simplified text, are very engaged and able to kind of participate in those conversations. So I think we can think of, shouldering the load as being sort of a shared responsibility among all of the learners in the classroom, and kind of putting yourself as the educator as one of those learners. I don't know if you ladies agree with that, but that's kind of what I was thinking about.
Yeah, in my room, it's actually I call them all my teammates, and they can't let their team down. Not to put any pressure on them, or because I do tell them I like to win. But the other part is I tell them I don't always have them raise their hands. Sometimes we have a discussion with no hands. Sometimes we use hands, and sometimes I just pull your name. And your job as a team member is to give us, share what you think. And I think that type of discussion also leads to confidence. And then again, that confidence, it does build better readers in the long run, because if they're confident in what they're doing, they're more willing to share and take that chance.
And
I agree.
we,
And to piggyback off what Kerri said, like the equity that you build in your classroom where every student knows something because they've all heard the same thing is really valuable. It does build confidence more than we anticipated.
Heather, I saw you go off mute. I'd love to
yeah,
hear what you're saying.
I had to, I did, because a lot of my kids, we didn't have CKLA. So by the time they have got to me, they are not anywhere close to where they need to be sometimes. And so I've had to scaffold it, and I just start from the beginning and we choral read the readers together. But that gives everybody, even kids who can't read all the words, they know the vocab, so they're able to do that, but they just follow along and they will say the word even just a second after we do, but they have the confidence because they're reading it with us. So we start that way. So we start with the choral reading, we move into like partner reading, and then we go into independent reading, and that kind later on, maybe like by unit 4 or 5. But it does take a little while. It takes practice. It definitely, you have to set how you're going to do it. You need to make sure you have that set up and you've trained them well on those. But it comes around, I promise.
Excellent. Okay, we have more questions coming in, so I'll just keep going because I think they're really fruitful. Jessica, who teaches first grade, agrees explicit instruction is crucial, but she says kids arrive to school at different stages in writing and reading. How do you recommend, or what's your experience with differentiation in writing?
I have a really interesting load this year, so I'll go ahead and give it a try. I have sometimes I will pull up a chair to them and I will listen and I will write for them depending on where they're at, because here's the problem: when they have the ideas and they can't get it on paper, that's really frustrating, because they know what you want them to do, but they're not able to do it yet. And so I will help them in that way. And that alone, one of my students who I've been working with really diligently this year, because like I said, she's at a little bit different level than all the rest of the class. Today she wrote everything by herself. I got her started. I read the question to her one more time. She goes, I think I can do it. And coming from a girl who couldn't spell anything but a CVC word, I'm like, you go, girl. And I could read it when she was done. And she was so proud of herself. And we're on unit 4, we're in the Roman civilization. So I think that's part of it. I think also too, just making sure I do a lot of, we copy a lot, we take notes together. And for a lot of my readers this year, who are writers, I think that helps to see that explicit instruction on how I would write it. Even if we're doing what I call snippets, if we're taking notes, we do them all together. And I think that builds their confidence too in what they're doing. So it's kind of tiered support. I do a lot of sit by quickly, help them through, maybe, listen to their ideas and go, ooh, that's a good start, just to give them that boost. That would be my number one thing.
I
Yeah.
also use, sorry, I use graphic organizers a lot, and I differentiate them. You know, some kids need more support than other kids. Some kids will just kind of fill in the blanks, you know, on it and then rewrite the whole thing. Some kids can write the sentences by themselves. So we just use those until we're able to remove them. You know, it's kind of like we work our way up, just scaffolding that.
Heather, you said the exact thing I was going to say. Scaffolding is really important. So, if you have kids, like in kindergarten, for example, when they're not readers and writers yet, but it wants them to respond in writing to something, our kindergarten teachers are really creative about having the kids identify the first sound that they want to write down, and then the teacher will go around, or somebody will help them with that or whatever. But we always want our kids to be achieving the next thing, right? That difficult learning. So whatever, like working in their ZPD, trying to get them to that next learning is really like where the rubber meets the road for a lot of kids. So just making sure that scaffolding is in place.
The great
Excellent.
news, a lot of those graphic organizers are in third grade. So that's a great part, is you might have to add lines to them or something, but that is the nice feature too.
Amazing. This next question is from Michael and Trisha, Aaron. I could see you chiming in. I could certainly see the panel chiming in here, but he says, our district is just starting to explore CKLA. We have been a district of small group reading for years with leveled readers. What does this look like in CKLA? And if no leveled readers, what was the hardest shift with not knowing student reading levels?
I mean, I'd be happy to talk about that, but I know that some of these educators here also have had that experience where, some of us taught our students to read using leveled readers, and we felt like, well, I did teach students to read, right? But at the same time, you weren't able to reach all of your learners, or there were students who were never able to make it to grade level. And so what we know now through we like to say, you know better, you do better, right? And so with this science of reading and the research that we know about how students learn to read and write, it's really essential that they're receiving that explicit and systematic instruction and have access to grade level text with those decodable readers. So within CKLA, you really are able to see the ways in which the students can access the text. Our decodable readers are 100% decodable, which means we never ask students to read something that they have not been explicitly taught. And we don't have to worry about what you were mentioning, Katie, like cueing or asking students to look at a picture or things like this that we thought might have been strategies to support, but we know now that this explicit instruction is actually what's going to have the desired impact. And that being said, you are going to have a wide range of abilities within your classroom, and every one of you here probably can speak a little bit more to that. But the curriculum also provides a lot of differentiation supports within the context of the lesson, as well as intervention supports outside of core instruction that can be used to support students like right where they are. But I know that it's kind of a shared experience of teachers that shift to CKLA to feel like, I wish I would have started this sooner. I don't know if any of you can speak to that, but that's what I think. Yeah, Kerri.
And thinking about small groups, if you think about when kids would go to small group, you would have a small group book and everyone would be sitting there. You never even finished the whole thing because you didn't have time. You were like 15 minutes. So you would read like 2 pages of a book and then send them back to their seats, but working on skills. So that was literally all those kids were reading that day. And so when we use our readers, they're reading at least a chapter every single day. And like I said, the choral reading and the stuff, because I do have a lot of kids that do not read on level yet. So we do choral reading. I do a lot of drop a word where I'll read, and when I get to a vocab word, I'll stop and they will respond with that word. I do a lot of that for my kids that aren't quite on level yet, but eventually they get there and they're able to read it on their own.
Okay, I've got to mention this because this is what cracks me up about the whole thing, because I was really worried about this. I'm not going to read those leveled books. How am I going to know what level they're on? And I got really frantic about it at first. And then I thought, I'm like, wait a minute. I will literally move them levels because I know they don't know anything about that topic. and I'll move them to the next level because I know they know everything about monarchs and I know they're going to pass that one. So that's how, like, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, that doesn't tell me much. Where now I'm not looking at what level they're reading because I know they're reading grade level with me. So what I'm looking at is what are they missing in their foundation that they can't produce all these things, they can't do it on their own or independently. So I'm more looking now, I'm like, I wonder what blends they don't know fluently. I wonder what vowel combinations they missed. Like, my questions changed. And so I think the answer to that is your questions change about them as a reader. You know how they read because you read with them every day. And they read with you and they understand what you're reading. So you know they're comprehending it. So it goes back to maybe we need to start asking different questions, because to me, the leveled readers didn't really mean much in the long run.
Yeah, and also thinking about like the goal that we want is for every student to be reading at grade level. And the bad thing about leveled readers, and this was a hard thing for us to get over to in our district, was, well, this kid is at a C level and this kid is at a D level. Well, if they're only ever in those levels, how are they ever going to get to grade level? They need to have that experience. They need to be taught, this is how you digest grade level text. Here are the skills that you need. I'm going to teach you those. And that's one of the really cool things about the systematic and explicit phonics instruction in CKLA. Like, those things are taught and they're reinforced through different things like the individual code charts and the spelling trees and things like that, so that the kids are constantly getting those skills, and you're constantly reviewing tricky words, also like identifying how those work, and phoneme mapping or phoneme grapheme mapping, things like that. Like, all those things happen, and those are really the things that you have to do to get kids to read at grade level.
And their tests are on grade level. They don't take their tests at a level B or a level C. They take them on grade level. So we have to, as a world, be catching them up to grade level. I think it's just so important.
Amazing. Thank you all for your insights there. I think we have one more question. It's from Kelsey, and she asks, what resources and I guess by extension, what advice do you have for providing families with information to help them work alongside you with a program that is probably teaching them to read, your students to read differently than families are used to?
Well, I can kind of jump in here. So there is information online. We do have a caregiver hub that provides all kinds of insight and information for families about the knowledge and science of reading and things like that that are very family friendly. But if you guys have any insight on things that maybe you do in your classroom, parent letters, anything like that that might go home, we'd love to hear about it.
They are in the workbooks, have the take-home parent letters too. You can tear them out and send them home, and they're wonderful. They tell the parents exactly what you're learning, everything. They're amazing.
Yep, our teachers send home caregiver letters. So K2, they have one for skills and one for knowledge. They get sent home as a physical letter, but they also go in Seesaw because that's the program that we use in our district. So they send them home in Seesaw too, so that parents have them digitally, so that they're always knowing, like, here's what my kid is going to be learning, and here's the skills that we can. And even sometimes they have like things that you can do at home in them. So that's really helpful too. Yes, there are Spanish editions for a lot of the different things of caregiver letters.
For mine, so I might be the odd one in this group. I don't like homework at all. At all. Like, I won't give it. So if they want to take it home, the kids will beg for their spelling words, and that is fine. They may go home and practice them if they so wish, and they think that's kind of fun because they're like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm like, well, great, but you don't have to. And so they still all go practice it. My biggest thing to parents, because that kind of throws them off at first, they're like, well, what do you mean? How do I help at home? And the biggest thing that I say is, read with them. Find a book that they want to read, that you want to read as a family, and you read it. Have them listen to books. They don't have to, and if for third grade I'm speaking, because I know first grade they do something, they send home decodable books of what they've read that they have. I don't know if she made copies or if they come with the program. I'll be really honest. I didn't ask her. But for me, it's more like I want reading to be fun. Read before bed. Read to unwind. Make reading the most enjoyable thing you do it. I would prefer that coming from home than anything else.
And I would
And
also just add, thinking about all of these engagement activities that everyone has talked about, I've seen so many schools that involve families in those celebrations at the end of units and domains. And parents are often shocked at all of the incredible information that their students have retained and that they're celebrating. And they really start to recognize that this works and that their students are reading and are engaged with the topics. And just to piggyback off that, Kerri, we do have samples of the decodable readers in their activity pages that they can take home. And of course, they're available like as PDFs. So some teachers probably also send copies home or maybe on Seesaw and things like that. So lots of flexibility for sharing with families.
And I've seen some really engaging family events where they actually will sit down at home and listen to the decodables or listen to their readers on the student hub, which is a lot of fun for them to hear the actors that are saying the words and following along with them. So lots of different engaging ways.
Excellent. Okay, if there are no final thoughts from the panelists, I think those are all the questions we had come in. Thank you so much to the wonderful panel here, and thank you so much for joining us and for everyone's insightful questions. Again, if you'd like to learn more about Amplify CKLA beyond what was discussed here, you can watch our other webinars at amplify.com/fall2025-SOR-demos. You'll get all these links in an email, so don't worry about transcribing those right now. But we appreciate your time here today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.